one response to things that cannot change is not prayer, it's planning. When you are confronted with a constant in life, a lot of people want to pray away the constant. You can't pray away something that will never change. You have to plan around it. An inheritance is not just what you leave for your children, but what you leave in your children. Your children. And this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people are making today, where you convince yourself that you are working so hard just to provide a life for your children without realizing that everything you provide for your children, if you do not spend time with them, if you do not deposit, if you do not make a deposit in them, everything you've worked for will eventually be wasted. It is one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of generational wealth today, because a lot of people pass on the wealth without passing on the mindset and discipline that created and built the wealth. And so you pass it down to people who don't understand the cost, what it cost to build it. And when you don't understand the cost, you're going to abuse what you have. You're going to abnormally use what you have or what you've been given. Proverbs chapter 2. And you're going to notice something interesting as we start this. Because Proverbs chapter 2, Solomon starts out with a couple of conditional statements. Verse 1 says, "My son, if you receive my words." If is a statement is a conditional word. If you receive my words and treasure my commands within you, so that you incline your ear to wisdom and apply your heart to understanding. Verse 3 now says, yes, if you cry out for discernment and lift up your voice for understanding. Verse 4, if you seek her as silver and search for her as for hidden treasures, then you will understand the fear of the Lord and find the knowledge of God. Solomon is giving his son here a conditional instruction. If tells you that it's an option, you have the power of choice. But now the question I had is, why is Solomon giving his son conditional statements here? And again, when we're studying the Bible, we need to understand that the original manuscripts did not have chapters and verses. Chapters and verses were given much later. And so whenever we want to understand what is happening in the new chapter, we need to go back to the previous chapter to figure out, is this a continuation? What is the context for what we're about to read? And so obviously today we're in Proverbs 2. Last week we touched on Proverbs chapter 1, which will give us the context for why Solomon is giving his son a conditional statement here. So last week we saw how Solomon, who God had blessed with wisdom, wealth, and honor, he decided to compile and document a lot of his observations about life. You have to understand, these weren't regular observations. Like when Solomon encountered God in a dream and God gave him a blank check, God was pleased with Solomon's request. He said, you haven't asked for wealth, you haven't asked for the death of your enemies, you have asked for wisdom, the ability to provide justice for my people. And God was pleased and he said, I'm going to give you wisdom, and not just that, I'm going to give you wealth and honor. And if you obey my commandments, then you have long life. God even gave Solomon a condition. I'm going to give you the ability to be a god on this earth. But if you choose to be a nuisance about it, then I'm just going to cap your years. If you obey my commandments and you steward this gift I'm giving you, then you have long life. But that long life is going to be conditional. So you have to understand that Solomon had been blessed with the gift of wisdom. He would look at life and he would begin to decode the pattern, the principle. And Solomon was unique in the sense that in today's world, we are usually captivated by people who have wisdom in specific areas of life. For example, if you see someone who is wise in business, that person is usually very wise in the area of business, but may not be wise in other areas. You may see another person who is wise in the area of marriage, but may not be wise in the area of business, in the area of career, in the area of, maybe even relationship with God. But Solomon was unique in the sense that Solomon was wise he had the wisdom for every area, where if you had a conversation with him, it will not be a surface level conversation. Solomon will go deep. If you talk to him about marriage, he will go, and when you talk, you'll be like, man, are you a professor in this stuff? Like, when you talk to him about engineering, Solomon would go so deep that you'd be like, do you have a PhD in this? When you talk to him about finances, you're like, how do you know so much? In life, we see people who are who read wide, but very few who go deep. Solomon was both, he read both wide and was deep in everything that he read because he had the gift of wisdom. So you can imagine Solomon at some point decided he needed to document his core observations. He had read so wide and understood so deep. You need to understand because kings were coming to meet Solomon just to hear him speak. Guys, let that sink in. In those days, it's like another president going to another country to say, I want to learn from your president. It was unheard of. Kings had ego. They had pride. Like, they even had wise men who would give them advice. To hear that there is another king somewhere who has such wisdom that I don't just want to hear what he has said from a third party. I want to physically go to be around him, to speak with him. I want to see the evidence of his wisdom. When I was studying this, I'm like, Solomon could have been the physical manifestation of what it meant to be the king of kings, because kings came to him for advice. It's one thing to sound wise. It's another thing to have the evidence to show your wisdom. He had results. He had wealth. His palace was beautiful. His men they looked like royalty. When people would come, it would be like going to Disneyland. But here's the thing. Even though Solomon was wise, even though Solomon had all the wealth, had all the accolades, had all the partnerships and the relationships, even though he had the achievements, Solomon recognized one thing that he couldn't change. One limitation that he had. He knew that he was going to die one day. He knew that death was the one constant in life that he could not bypass. It was the one constant in life that even in all his wisdom and all that he had achieved, he could not bypass this certainty. He knew that he was going to die one day. And he knew that everything he had learned, everything he had built would one day either die with him or would be handed over to someone else. Can you imagine Solomon in all his wisdom if he never documented the book of Proverbs, Ecclesiastes? Everything he learned would have died with him. Maybe he would have heard a few people quote him from time to time. In the words of Solomon, everything he had achieved would have been left to his children. And at that point, you have no authority over how they are going to steward what you spent your entire life building. And so there's a powerful lesson here because Solomon understood that the one response to things that cannot change is not prayer, it's planning. When you're confronted with a constant in life, a lot of people want to pray away the constant. You can't pray away something that will never change. You have to plan around it. And so Solomon decided, I believe this is one of the reasons why he decided to write this particular book, because he wanted to share a compilation of all his wisdom nuggets so that even after he is gone, his son would continue his legacy. Even after he's gone, there will still be a generational impact. Solomon came to the understanding that an inheritance is not just what you leave for your children, but what you leave in your children. Inheritance is not just what you leave for your children, but what you leave in your children. And this is one of the mistakes that a lot of people are making today, where you convince yourself that you are working so hard just to provide a life for your children without realizing that everything you provide for your children, if you do not spend time with them, if you do not deposit, if you do not make a deposit in them, everything you've worked for will eventually be wasted. It is one of the reasons why we don't see a lot of generational wealth today, because a lot of people pass on the wealth without passing on the mindset and discipline that created and built the wealth. And so you pass it down to people who don't understand the cost, what it costs to build it. And when you don't understand the cost, you're going to abuse what you have. You're going to abnormally use what you have or what you've been given. And so Solomon, in his wisdom, he decides to write this book. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this clip and you'd like to watch the entire Bible study session, make sure you click this link here. And if you've been blessed by this channel in any way you feel led to support, please consider clicking the link below. And for any amount you give, you get a free Bible study masterclass where I teach you how to unlock the 3 dimensions of the word. Literally, I'm going to be teaching you how to study the Bible in 3D. If you also feel led to support us on a monthly basis, basis, consider becoming a member of the YouTube channel, where you get some exclusive perks as well, like becoming a part of our book club, our monthly book club. Thanks again for watching, and God bless you. See you on the next one. Take care. Bye-bye.